Hi, I'm Prash,
And I'm Ernest.
and welcome to a presentation of a thesis titled Towards Personal Process Management. Our supervisor is Helen Pike, and our assessor is John Shepherd. Just to make it clear that this video is supplementary to our report, which contains a more in-depth view of our thesis. This report is available on request. So moving right along. Let's talk about the problem or what motivated us to work on this thesis. So as an individual, let's talk about let's talk about a process that you would have to go through. For example, a job application. So in order to apply for a job, there are a couple of things that you would have to do. So first, you would probably find out some information about your employer. So most likely go to their website and then find out also the list of tasks that you would have to complete in order to apply for this job. So as you can see, there's a couple of issues with this self-generated tasks list. First issue is that there's time-wasting research involved. So basically, you're wasting your time researching about a process that you have to complete in order to come up with the task list. And once you've completed your research and you've derived your task list, more than likely, once your process is over, you're probably going to throw this away. So all the reusable knowledge that you've created is not shared. So what can we do to combat this problem? Well, there's some current offerings out there, such as traditional task management applications. Two examples are Checkmarks and Remember the Milk. They do a good job of managing tasks, but the issue here is that you have to do your own research and come up with a task list in the first place. So what if there was an application that sort of did the research for you, and all you had to do was say download a process and you would have all the tasks associated with that process, and then you'll be able to filter these tasks, sort these tasks, basically manage these tasks for you. We call this application Process Assistant. So moving right along. Let's talk about let's give you an outline of what we're going to talk about in this video. So we'll go through a background, so what is a personal process, the concept of personal process management, context-based tasks, personal process modeling, give you an overall of our design, give you a demonstration of our application, talk about the key strengths, issues, limitations, the evaluation of our system, and any future work that's involved. So, background. What is a personal process? Well, we define a personal process as repetitive day-to-day activities relevant at a personal level. So, an example of this, say, it could even be, say, a cooking recipe, such as how to make pasta, or a visa application process, or like I mentioned earlier, a job application process. The key concept here is that personal processes have partial control and semi-automation. So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, when following a cooking recipe, there are many variations that you as an individual can perform on this recipe. So that's what we term as partial control, because not everyone follows a process right down to every task. And let's talk about semi-automation. So, for example, a visa application process, there's also some back-end systems involved. For example, once you submit the visa, there's probably a computerized system that handles your application and all the background tasks that's involved with this application. So that's semi-automation. So, personal process management. Well, as mentioned earlier, process is comprised of tasks in sequence. Managing a process requires you to flatten this process into a task list. But the key issue here is that you have to maintain the flow and the logic. Since these tasks are in sequence, once you converted them into a task list, they have to be in sequence again. So context-based tasks. So any task has some context associated with this. And our application uses this context to aid the user in completing the task. For example, a task may have the time associated with it, such as the starting time and an ending time, and the location, so our geographical coordinates. personal process modeling. Well, in order to create a personal process, you have to be able to model this. So we use a modeling language, basically provides a diagrammatic representation of a process. The tool that we have chosen to use is YAWL, which is an educational tool. It provides XML output of a process that's run by the user. It supports most workflow patterns, and the added benefit is that it supports BPMN to YAWL conversion, so as a result, we believe we have covered both bases there. So moving on to the design of our application, here's an overall system view. So as you can see, the process designer here starts off by submitting a YAWL file of a personal process to our server. Our server contains a couple of services such as the file uploader service, the repo service, the parser service, and the analytics service. So in order to upload the file, the process designer will be using the file uploader service. Once the file has been uploaded, it gets transmitted onto a server and gets stored in a process database. And on the other end of the system, the end user who is using our application is able to browse our repository of processes using the repo service and download a process using the parser service. Once the user downloads a process, the YAWL file is converted to a personal process object and downloaded as an XML file onto the application. This is then saved as a process file on the mobile device, along with some settings associated with the application in the database, such as the metadata of the process and any analytics. So any analytics that are collected by the device are also transmitted back to the UnisW server as usage data. So that basically gives an overall system view of our application. Moving on to the demonstration, I shall now hand this over to Ernest.
Okay, thanks Prash. Before demonstrating the actual application, we want to give a sort of a whole end-to-end demonstration of our system. So this, what you see in front of you right now, is the YAWL editor. So in the YAWL editor, the process designer will be able to design their own process. I've loaded up a process that we have already designed ourselves, and this is actually a process for a job recruitment. This is a job recruitment process. So in terms of how we actually modeled this in YAWL, you just set tasks and they can connect through AND splits and OR splits and exclusive OR splits, just like BPMN. And at the same time, we need to modify this a little and add a little context to each task so that we know, for example, the location and the time of each task. So if we go here, for example, we can go to set documentation, and this is our little syntax that we had to create so that we can add, for example, a description into this task, whether it requires internet connectivity, the start date, the end date, and how long it will take. So that's just our documentation tag. So when the user has finished designing this process, the process designer will then go to our REST service to upload the file to our centralized server. So let's do that now. So this is the file that we just drew up. I'm going to upload that file now. So this is a simple web application. Click the send file button, and it just requires a little bit of metadata that we have to fill out about the process. So the name, I'm just going to put as Woolworths Retail Recruitment. The author would just be Woolworths. The date would be today's date, which is the 9th of June. And the description, I've just put a set description there. Okay, so just a disclaimer that any information here about Woolworths is made up. We just used it as a study example, but it does not represent the actual information about Woolworths. They're a great company, by the way. So yeah, so we'll just click the submit button, and it says you have successfully uploaded the file. So for what do we do now? We can actually go to the app. Now I've got a screencast of the app. So this is our actual application. Now that the file has been uploaded by the process designer, the end user can browse this file through our repository. This is our mobile application, what you see in front of you. We have two main functionalities. We can view the process list, or we can download processes. Let's click download processes for now. So now we can see a list of processes that we've designed. Now you can see there's Woolworths Retail Recruitment here. The rest are just some pre-made examples that we have uploaded to our server. So let's click Woolworths Retail Recruitment. Okay, so this is the information that we just uploaded, the metadata, and we uploaded it today. So yeah, for now, I'll get into the average rating comments later, so let's just download the process now. Okay, I've already downloaded this process, so this pop-up just says that it will restart it. Okay, so this is the once we've downloaded it, the application takes us straight to our process list, and this is what you see in front of you. Now we have separated the process list into 3 different tabs. So there's the Processes tab, the Tasks tab, and the Suggestions tab. Now let's first go to the Processes tab. So in the Processes tab, we separated the information by process, and if you click on a process, it will tell you the list of tasks associated with that process. So same for Woolworths Retail Recruitment. It says submit application. Now note that because a process is a sequential list of tasks, we first have to submit the application before we can do anything else. So when the user has completed this, the user just has to click this and then click the confirm button. And it will refresh and it will show you the next task or set of tasks that he or she can do. Now, in the process, if you have submitted an application but you got rejected, then you can decline your application because you've been rejected, or you can progress to the next stage, which is a phone interview. Now, what if the user wanted to know, what else there is to do in the process, but because they just wanted to preview the rest of the process. Now, what you can do on Android is you click the options menu, and you can see there's view and filter. Now the user can press view and display all tasks, display valid tasks, or display valid and upcoming tasks. Right now, the setting is set to display valid tasks. We can display all tasks, so let's click that. And now we can see that under Woolworths Retail Recruitment, all the tasks are listed. Okay, so oh yeah, just a note: the difference between display all tasks and display valid tasks and upcoming tasks is valid tasks and upcoming tasks do not include tasks that you've already completed. Yeah, cool. So when the user tries to select the submit application, because we've already done that, the button's grayed out. So now we only can do either phone interview, application decline. Now, what if the user just suddenly wanted to, ignore a task and just say, "Yeah, I'll do that later." We've because we realize that these are personal processes, we need to accommodate some sort of personalization. So we've enabled this feature. So what the user can do is long click phone interview and then click ignore task. What this does is actually ignore that task and lets the user progress to the next stage. So you can see that's grayed out. And the next stage is conduct research. The user, of course, can go back to phone interview and confirm the task again, and that will just complete it again. Okay, so that's the Processes tab. Also, as you can see, we automatically show for each task if the information is available and the process designer has set this information, when the task is due and the distance between you and the task. Now, the user can also long tap each task to find out more about that task. And then the user can click the view map button to view where it is. So that's our current location, and that is the task location. The same thing can be done for all the tasks inside the process. So if you long tap the process, you can access the process information page. This will give you the same metadata information that we filled in earlier. And we can also click the view map button to see all the tasks required in this process. Okay. So let's move on to the Task tab. The Task tab is just essentially a compilation of all the tasks in every process. Now, we enabled this view because the user may want to perform in this view different operations such as sort. So the user can sort by location or by time depending on where they are right now and what the time is right now. So if we sort by time, for example, yep, so it will show all the tasks with the closest deadline to us. Now what does this filter button do? The filter button, we have two different filters in our application. We have the internet valid filter and the time valid filter. The internet valid filter, so if we have the internet connection, it will show all the tasks. But if we don't have internet connection, it will show only tasks that don't require internet connection. Now right now I'm connected to the internet, so I'm not going to show that feature. But yeah, so the time valid tasks, this is a good one. Basically, each task that is in a process could have a start date and an end date. If we enable time valid tasks, we're asking the filter to show me only the tasks so that the time right now fits within that time period, the start and end date of that task. So that's what time valid task does. So let's click that. Okay, so because it's 7:20 p.m. right now, some of the tasks did get removed because some tasks require you to go to a location which closes at 5 p.m. So let's create no filter and we can get those tasks back. There should be more tasks in this task list. Okay, so that's that tab. The last tab that we have is the Suggestions tab. Now in the Suggestions tab, basically suggestions, we've enabled this feature so that we sort of give a approximate guess to the user based on our own algorithm what we think is the best task that they should complete first. So here we give the top 4 tasks that they should complete out of all of the tasks that they can complete right now, and this is based on where they are, the time right now, the opening and closing times of some of the stores that they have to visit in order to complete a certain task, for example, and also whether they require internet. All those factors we factor in, and we create a little suggestion tab here, so we give users a recommendation. So that's the Suggestions tab. Pretty straightforward. It has the same sort of features as all the other tabs in terms of being able to complete a task there. So that's the main core functionality of our app. The other thing I'd like to show you is that after completing a certain process, you can actually give some feedback. So let's look at Woolworths Retail Recruitment. Now I'm going to change the view back to valid tasks. And let's say our application is declined at this stage. So we're going to click that. And that's going to bring us to the feedback page. The user may or may not want to give feedback. It's completely optional, but in this case, let's try and give that feedback. So let's rate this process 5 out of 5 and just give a random comment. Oops. And we click the submit button. So that task is now removed from our process list. Sorry, that process is removed from our process list. And our feedback is automatically updated into our repository. So if we go back to our repository list, we'll go to Woolworths Retail Recruitment. And you can see that the latest comment that we just submitted is right there in the comment section. It also increased our average rating. So this is all happens real time, so it helps other users who are interested in completing that process to get some more information about it and share knowledge with each other in that sense. Now, our application automatically submits any feedback, and that goes to our repository, and we can actually download a list of all that data. I'll just show you here. So this will actually generate us a CSV file, and we'll open that. And you can see that this will actually generate all the analytic data. So we actually capture by device ID and process ID, task ID, when the user actually started that task and ended it, and the ratings and comments that the user gave in the feedback. So we can actually use this data for further analysis, and create reports and other business intelligence. Okay, so that is our application in a nutshell. The best way to actually understand this application is to use it yourself, and that is our application is available upon request. So, and again, as mentioned earlier, this demonstration should be used in conjunction with our report for a more detailed look. Okay, so now I'm just going to pass it back to Prash to further discuss about our evaluation and future work. Thank you.
Okay, so it's Prash here again. So moving on from the demonstration that Ernest provided, let's talk about the key strengths of our application. So the first one is that we have a centralized location for processes. This reduces research time that would be taken up by users when they have to do their own research on the processes that they need to complete. There's standardized notations for process design. This makes it easier for process designers to create personal processes. Context-based suggested tasks allows users to complete all their processes in the most efficient manner possible. We allow for user-directed flow, which is the ignore task feature, so we provide a sort of personalization feature for users. And some of the things that you can't actually see, so we have a modularized design in the application. This allows for future improvements. So for example, the UI could be changed without affecting any of the logic below that. And again, the suggestions could be made smarter because the suggestions right now is just as an interface, and an algorithm is in a sense a simple one. So using the analytics and maybe some machine learning and business intelligence aspects, you could create a smarter algorithm for the suggestions. And we provide a method for data collection which allows for process feedback, which is basically our analytics service. So moving on from that, let's talk about the issues and limitations. One of the issues is performance. This comes with having a mobile application that needs to constantly connect with a server backend. So when it has to download a process, it has to download quite a large chunk of XML data. And same thing when submitting analytics, it needs to submit quite a large chunk of XML data as well. There's a lot. The process object is actually a graph, so there's quite a lot of graph search, traversals, and etc. going on. So this takes up quite a lot of time on a mobile, which doesn't have that much processing power. Process logic at this state is quite simple in that we can handle splits and joins, so and, or, and exclusive ors, but we do not allow for loops and decision boxes in our processes. So the next thing, process review. So you'll notice that when a process designer uploads a YAW file into our file uploader web app, that we don't actually verify this process. So we don't actually check if this process matches our standards, and in fact, can this process be executed? So it would be nice to sort of tie in with a execution engine that can check this process for us before we allow process designers to submit into our system. The last one is automation. Our application doesn't connect to any process engines to complete processes on the back end, so in effect it requires everything to be done by the user. So it would be nice to be able to tie in application with the back end for the process execution. So for example, the job application, you could possibly, once you submit your application, it would be good if our application could work with the employer's process engine to sort of work out the next steps. So moving on from that, the evaluation of an application. So a couple of things that we try to evaluate. We try to evaluate the usefulness of a process repository, the accuracy of the suggestions engine, and just overall user experience and control. The full details of this the full results of this evaluation are available in our report. But just to provide a summary, we found that the process repository was in fact quite useful because people spend on average around 15 to 20 minutes just trying to develop their task list and sort of determine what tasks they need to complete for a process that we had given them. Our suggestions engine was quite good as well because it provided the tasks based on what they would prefer, based on their preferences. So basically, in effect, we asked them to choose from a list of tasks in order of their preference, and this closely matched our suggestions engine. Most of the users also felt pretty happy with the user interface and the flexibility and control provided, bearing in mind that this is a prototype and not a final application. So, future work. Some of the things that we would like to see implemented on this application is to allow, say for example, dynamic processes. So dynamic process is one that is changing during execution. So for example, let's take a process, say buying a used car. So to buy a used car, first you would do your search and you would come up with the list of cars that you would like to go and see. And what we would like to do is for our app to take these search results and then create tasks for each one of these cars with the location of them, so that you can easily decide which one you want to go and look at. So obviously this is a dynamic process since it changes as the user executes it. Another aspect is smarter suggestions. So like I mentioned earlier, it would be good if the suggestions would take into effect the feedback provided, such as how long it actually took users to complete a task, the logic and flow they followed when completing this task, and any sort of machine learning aspects, and then provide a better list of suggestions. Also rules-based context. So currently the context has to be explicitly specified by the process designer. What we would like to have is, say if the process designer just provides us with a web service so that we can just get the context of the task when we need it in the application. This also means that the location can be more specific to the user. So for example, say the user has to go to a post office. At this moment in time, the process designer would have to randomly pick a post office and put that location into the task. Whereas if he provided us with a web service, we could easily use that web service to find the closest location of a post office in relation to the user. And the last one would be a better application of analytics. So right now we're collecting the analytics data, but we aren't actually feeding it back into the application. You'll notice that one of the contexts for the task was the task duration. So it would be good if this task duration was in fact dynamic, and that it actually reflected the time it took other users to complete this task based on the analytics provided. So that's it for future work. And that concludes our presentation of thesis. Thank you.
Thank you.